Thank you very much for joining us to this connector webinar. My name is Patrice Gutebel. I am the product manager. To start things off, I will hand over the presentation to Alex, who is just going to describe quickly connector. Alex?
Well, thank you, Patrice. Connectr, very exciting new product for us. We're really jazzed about this. Connectr is essentially an application that allows you to apply rules to automate processes. You set up a series of either events, triggers, or conditions that need to be met, and then Connectr will string together multiple applications to process files the way you'd like. And that's the whole gig here. It's essentially middleware that can tie together a lot of your existing software and things like that. It's not just about Axle here at all. In fact, you don't even have to have Axle. And you see here we have some of the other applications and partner stuff that you can do, whether it's publishing to Facebook or YouTube, archiving to Archiware, using Moog, things like that. And we're hopeful that we're going to build this list of what these building blocks, as we call them, over time, and get other people involved and stuff like that. Very exciting, though. Very flexible is the most important thing. Again, when things happen, whether you change the status of a file in Axle or a file hits the server, it doesn't really matter. Something happens, and then Connectr picks up a file and it starts doing things. As it says here, we run on either a Macintosh or a Linux-based hardware platform, and the product it's not for the technically faint of heart, but the user face is very self-explanatory, as you'll see from Patrice later. And again, you can develop your own stuff, or third parties can do it, and we're going to see that universe of applications grow. And what we're hoping to do is literally have kind of an app type store, in about a year's time, where you'll be able to find pre-existing flows and things like that Connectr flows that work and stuff like that. So the building blocks, again, is the idea behind everything we do here is to connect to as many different things, and also to be totally open. Like Axle, we're not really hiding anything. You can do things with it supports XML, JSON, the REST API. It's a very open system, and anybody with technical chops can really make it do pretty much anything. So it's a very, very open system. All right, without further ado, I'm going to pass this on to Patrice, who will actually run the product through the paces and show you how it works.
This is Connectr, currently pretty empty. The interface is pretty much as follows. The building is going to happen in the main content area right here. Underneath, I have multiple messages that will help me to troubleshoot or confirm that actions are taking place in my workflow. On the right side here, I have the setting for the workflow, where I can also set different variables that I can use for my workflow. I can trigger some visual content to my workflow to help me, again, troubleshoot and make sure that everything is going as I wish. Possibility to edit different blocks. Possibility to search the different blocks from the third tab. Arrange the layout. And the last tab will help me monitor everything, more specifically the memory on the machine. So how am I going to bring some blocks right here? Either I search for something specific, such as, for example, file copy, and I will drag it. And as you will see, I have now a building block. Another way would be to right-click, where you will see that I have multiple categories, such as data manipulation, database access, event triggers, file manipulation, image process, connect to my media asset management, transcoding, and so on. There is a lot of different modules that come out of the box, and you can easily add your own. We have a documentation and an SDK that will show you how to develop. It's all Java-based and very easy to actually, if you have a Java coder, they will be able to very easily understand how to create new blocks for you. And our hope is to have multiple vendors develop additional modules into connectr. The point of connectr is to be open, and as Alex pointed out, it is to be the middleware that will help you connect the dots in multiple parts of your day-to-day operations. So for example, I can simply add an event, and I would say, for example, a button trigger, and I have a new building block. And now I'm going to draw cables to basically connect the dots. On the left side, you will see here different ports that I can pass information to the block, or I can feed them directly. I can either double click, or I can use the information layout here on the right side. And you will see that upon success or failure, we can create more tasks. So let's actually see a real life example. So one thing to point out is that connectr is independent of Axel. Although because we work with Axel, we are going to show a couple of demos that tie into Axel. But again, you do not need to have Axel in order to work with connectr. So this is my first diagram. And I like actually to show this workflow as an example, because it will show you the possibility to have multiple workflows running at the same time, as well as saving results or data to be used in other workflows. So what is happening here? You will see that I have a trigger tick, which basically will run every second. The second block here is basically bash script. What I'm doing is I'm grabbing the date and I remove 2 weeks worth in seconds, and I print the result. The result is going to show here. I will pass it along once I process it to create a search string. My search string is going to be for Axel. And very briefly, this is what we are going to try to accomplish here. This is my Axel system that I'm loading right now. For those of you who are not familiar with Axel, it's our radically simple media asset management solution that will monitor what is going on your shared storage, pick up the files, render proxies, allow you to tag them. We also have technology for auto tagging the clips, and you can perform search. We use Elasticsearch syntax. So I can basically type my Elasticsearch or create a query with Axel. So let me check this connectr folder here. And you will see that I have 5 clips. What we are going to try to accomplish is push files to be archived. Normally, I will need to log into my Axel system and send it to archive. It's time consuming. I want to automate the process. So my goal right now is to have a workflow that will look for the files that are newer than 2 weeks, that has not been archived, and I'm going then to send them to archive using Axel API. And this is why I'm building this search string for my Axel system. I'm looking for the last modified based on my bash script. I will have the less than 2 weeks here, and the files that have not been archived. And I'm going to save it. So let's actually make a new workflow now where we can use this information. By clicking on the plus symbol here, I create a new workflow. It opens a new tab. And again, the key is that these 2 workflows will run in parallel. You can choose to not run them in parallel. That will require a little bit some work in terms of when to start or stop a workflow. But for this example, we are just going to run them in parallel. I'm going to call it archive files, for example. And one thing I always like to do is to show the data flow visualization. It is actually going to pulse on the cables as it goes through my process. Let's get started on building. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have another trigger tick right here. And I'm going to use the Axel client for the media asset management. And I start to connect the dots. And I can feed the information either from the info tab here or by double-clicking on the box itself. Let's try again. So you will notice that I've made a typo. I've done it on purpose so I can show you action upon failure. And for that, I'm just going to trigger a quick search here. That's always faster, at least in my opinion. I fail to connect to Axel, for example. I'm just going to trigger an OS notification. You can send email, you can send text messages using iMessage on Mac. So there is a lot of different things you can do. Or of course, to perform another task upon failure. In my Axel building block here, you will see that I have below the exposed function. These are the different API calls that Axel have. And I'm going to simply do a search. Here's my search in Axel. Connect the dots again. So on the left side in the port, so far I have only entered everything manually, but we can very easily pass information. And this is why in my first workflow here, I do create my search query. So I can reuse this variable, search query, and pass it along. So I do not even need to type. First workflow, create the search query. Second, we'll use it. Bypassing a little bit the technicalities in terms of how the Axel APIs work, the result that we receive from an Axel search will be a list of file IDs, which is perfect because if I wanted to archive, let's try again. If I wanted to archive, this is exactly what I need. Again, from my search result, I will pass it. From my success on my search, I will pass it. Again, upon failure, I can have other actions. As a reminder, I made a typo here in terms of where my Axel resides, so it should return an OS notification. Very important to look at the messages below. You can also enable stepping and run the process step by step to help you troubleshoot. Let's run the project. As you can see, I have a notification. I'm going to stop the project. So fail to connect to my Axel system. We have the notifications here. I'm going to now correct my URL, and everything should be sorted out. As a reminder, the goal is to archive the files that are new. So the idea would be that we have the triangles that show up in Axel, showing me that the file have been archived. Now we can see the pulse happening. And you will see that some action have happened. One thing to notice is my query search is updating, and that comes from the previous workflow. As I said, the two workflows are running simultaneously. And if I look my Axel interface now, you will see that all the files that were not archived have been now archived. So basically, you can automate your workflow. You can also trigger actions by going to stop the project now. You can also trigger actions from Axel's metadata. Let's jump into another example. Going to save my search, and here we go. Another example. One thing I like to point out is you can leave annotations and comments that will help you understand the workflow or have somebody else take over if needed. Every 3 seconds, I'm going to connect to my Axel system, perform a search for the checkbox ready to copy, and for each of the files that I have in my results, I'm going to grab the path, and I'm going to do a file copy. And I'm going to copy that over to my copy folder that is located in my desktop. Let me delete this file so we can start fresh. Actually, I'm even going to go further. Let's take the output file from the copy, and we are going to upload it to YouTube. I'm looking for my YouTube module. Here I have, you will see again the exposed functions. And I'm simply going to upload a video. Upon success, I'm going in. The video file that I want to upload will be the file that I just copied. So I'm just going to pass this information along. As a title, I'm going to call it Connector Webinar. But again, everything can be passed with the workflow. Description, testing. And there we are. So in order to connect to my YouTube, I need the authorization JSON file. What I like about the information here, it means I can easily drag and drop file, and it will resolve the path for me. So we can be extremely specific in what we see. I can show the different values that exist in my system, as well as what goes through the cable. I'm going to run the project. And because nothing has been checked in Axel, we are not going to go very far. As you can see, the result is false. There is no result found. If I were to perform the search, ready to copy, search, nothing has been found. So let's go back to this folder, and I'll take this Boston Street file right here. Going to edit the metadata, set ready to copy, saved. And you will see that the information is going to go further this time, where we have data. And you will see below in the messages here that the copy has happened, and we have started the YouTube initiation process. And once the upload is going to start, it is going to also show me the progress. It is a small file, so it is going to upload very fast. As you can see, it is still uploading. And let's quickly jump into the YouTube channel here for Axel AI. You will see that before I had 3 videos in my channel. The upload is complete, as I will see in the messages below here. So I'm going to refresh my window. And as you can see, Connector Webinar, it was set to private. And if I were to take a look at the description, you will see testing. And of course, whenever the video is ready, it will be processed. And here we go. I have now my video. Of course, I can change from private to public as well. I decided to leave it private because it's a YouTube channel and I don't want to throw garbage into it. So these have been 2 examples so far using Axel. Now I'm going to jump into another project, and that will be our last example. And this project will look very complicated, and it is because it does a lot. So let me stop this project here. And I'm going to open again a watch folder transcoder. No, do not save the changes. Here I go. So very complicated. One thing you can do is actually help your eyes and hide the ports that we don't use. That will make it slightly easier to read. So every 2.5 seconds, I'm going through a folder, and you will see that, as I discussed about variable before, you can create variables to use, such as, for example, the watch folder path. And I have something in my desktop in my transcode folder where I'm watching the folder to transcode. Whatever new file has been added, I'm simply adding whatever I need. We are going to grab each of the new file, and we are simply going to transcode the movies. Each of the values that I have set as variable are being passed into my movie transcoding block. It uses FFmpeg. Connector also comes with FFmpeg, and if you know exactly how to work out the scripting, you can simply use the FFmpeg transcoder here. Let me show everything, where you will see that you can easily script FFmpeg or using FFmpeg or FFmpeg. A little bit more powerful than our default transcoder because it returns the progress, it returns everything, you have the log, so you have more option with this one. The advantage of this default movie transcoder is that everything can be set without too much thinking or too much scripting. And you will see a massive amount of cables going through. If I fail, I want to throw a notification. If I succeed, I also want to throw a notification. And you will see that the output file is being passed along as a message. In the end, I'm going to do a move. So if we look at here, it's a move. I'm moving the file from the original watch folder so that I do not reprocess it by accident. And again, what I'm going to do at the end is send an email upon success or failure. Very complicated workflow, very complete as well. This is something that once you get the hang of how connector works, this is something you can build in half an hour. You can also set which extension to watch in the watch folder. Let's run the project. And again, I always like to show the data flow visualization so we can see the pulses. So we see the highlights on the cables. We are not going far because if I were to check the transcode folder that I have and to transcode, it is currently empty. So let's take the file that I freshly copied here from the previous workflow, and let's go to add it right here. And you will see again all the information that is being populated at the bottom here, including the FFmpeg response. I can disable it by not checking the debug mode and just keep the action, the info or the errors and so on. It's a short file, so the transcoding is going to happen relatively quickly. And whenever it is done, we should have not only an OS notification, but we should have also an email being sent. File notification, however, I do have an error right here, which basically send me illegal address. So if I were to look now in my send email, it looks like it does not like my formatting. So let's actually remove this one. That's also very important. I have updated the workflow as it is still running. This is something you can do. And this set, let's grab another file. And for that, I'm just going to grab this file right here. And here we go. Another short file that is being sent. We are retranscoding. So without stopping the process, I fixed it based on the information returned in the messages. And this time, it should actually go through. And we are waiting to see. We're going to see the results coming for the email as well. Very easy to pass along the information to the messages below. We have this building block. One thing that is actually quite powerful while it is still rendering, one thing that is quite powerful here is that we can also, in addition to do some bash scripting, as I showed you earlier, we can also do some JavaScript. And as you can notice below, we have JSON parser. So if you really want to tie into an API where there is no building block, you can actually create your HTTP request that you're going to send and receive, and you can parse and continue and move on and make all the API calls you may need. I'm looking below in my messages here. You will see that the email was sent OK. And if I were to check my email, you will see that from me, transcode success with the file path. And this has been a very quick introduction, at times complex. Again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to the next step with you. Take care now.